The Great Hall of the Galaxy Council was the largest room Daniel Harris had ever seen. It stretched upward for what seemed like miles, with seats carved into the walls in great circles. Thousands of alien beings sat in those seats, watching, waiting. The light came from everywhere and nowhere, soft and golden, making the whole place feel like a temple. Daniel stood at the center of the floor. He was a tall man with gray at his temples and tired eyes. Beside him stood Lisa Morgan, a younger woman with sharp features and a datapad clutched tight in her hands. Behind them were 6 other members of the human delegation, all dressed in their best clothes, all trying not to look as small as they felt. This was humanity's first time before the Galaxy Council. Earth had only discovered faster than light travel 80 years ago. They had only met other species 50 years ago. And now they were here, in the heart of galactic civilization, to ask for help. Daniel looked up at the alien faces around him. Some had scales. Some had feathers. Some had no faces at all. Just smooth surfaces that somehow still managed to look down at him with contempt. He took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Honored members of the Galaxy Council," he said. His voice echoed in the vast space. "I am Daniel Harris, Ambassador of Earth. I come before you today to ask for membership in this great body." He paused. The translation field around him turned his words into 1,000 languages, spreading them to every corner of the chamber. He waited for some response. There was none. "Earth is a small world," he continued. "We are a young species. We have been among the stars for less than a century. But we have learned much in that time. We have built colonies. We have established trade with 18 different species. We have shown that we can be good neighbors. Still nothing." The aliens watched him like scientists watching a bug under glass. Daniel pressed on. "But we face a danger that we cannot overcome alone. The Voron Imperium has claimed our space as their own. Their warships gather at our borders. They have told us that we must submit to their rule or be destroyed. We have tried to negotiate. They will not listen." He looked around the chamber, trying to find a sympathetic face. There were none. The Galaxy Council was created to protect the weak from the strong, Daniel said, to ensure that no species would be enslaved by another. This is why we are here. We ask for membership. We ask for protection. We ask only for the chance to exist. For a long moment, silence filled the chamber. Then, from the highest tier of seats, a voice spoke. "The Council recognizes High Counselor Zethron of the Kalosi Dominion." Daniel looked up. The being that rose from its seat was tall and thin, with blue skin and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on its face. It wore robes of shimmering gold, and when it moved like a snake uncoiling. "Ambassador Harris," Zethron said. His voice was smooth and cold. "Your words are touching. A small species, threatened by a larger one, coming to the Great Council for protection. It is a familiar story. We have heard it many times." "Then you understand our situation," Daniel said hopefully. "I understand that you are wasting our time." The words hit Daniel like a slap. Behind him, he heard Lisa draw in a sharp breath. "The Kalosi Dominion has existed for 120,000 years, Zethron continued. "The Voron Imperium has existed for 90,000 years. The youngest species on this council has been traveling among the stars for 15,000 years. And you humans have been here for less than 100 years. You are infants. You are nothing." Laughter began to ripple through the chamber. It started soft, then grew louder. Alien voices made sounds that the translator turned into laughter, and Daniel felt his face grow hot. "You come here asking for membership," Zethron said, his 4 eyes gleaming with amusement. "Membership is earned over millennia of service. It is earned through proof of worth. What have you offered the galaxy, humans? What great works? What ancient wisdom? You have offered nothing. You have built nothing of value. You are primitives playing with machines you barely understand. More laughter. Daniel clenched his fists at his sides. A new voice cut through the noise. It was deeper, rougher, like rocks grinding together. The council recognizes Commander Droth of the Voron Imperium. The being that stood was massive. He had thick green skin, small red eyes, and a mouthful of teeth that looked like they could bite through steel. He wore armor of black metal, and when he smiled, it was the smile of a predator looking at prey. I thank the council for its wisdom, Droth said. The humans are indeed primitives. They are weak, foolish, and have nothing to offer anyone. But they do have value. They are strong enough to work. They breed quickly. They will make excellent slaves. The chamber erupted in more laughter. Droth looked down at Daniel with open contempt. Do not worry, little human. The Voron will take good care of your species. You will learn your proper place. You will serve us, and in time, you will thank us for it. Daniel wanted to shout. He wanted to scream, but he forced himself to stay calm. He looked up at Zethran. I ask again for membership. I ask for the protection that this council promises to all species. Zethran made a sound that might have been a sigh. The petition is denied. Earth may reapply in 1,000 standard cycles. Until then, your species is on its own. This session is closed. The gavel fell. The sound echoed through the chamber like a death sentence dot as the delegates began to leave. Droth made his way down to the floor. He walked slowly, savoring the moment, until he stood directly in front of Daniel. He was so close that Daniel could smell him, a scent like rotting meat and hot metal. 1,000 cycles, Droth said quietly. You will not last one. My fleet will reach your little world within the year. And when we do, I will remember this day. I will remember how you stood here and begged. And I will make sure your people remember it too. He turned and walked away, his laughter echoing behind him. Lisa moved to Daniel's side. Her face was pale, but her eyes were burning with anger. What do we do now? She whispered. Daniel watched Droth leave. He watched the other delegates filing out, still chuckling, already forgetting about the small blue world called Earth. And something changed in his eyes. The fear faded. The despair faded. What replaced it was something harder, something colder. Now, he said quietly, we go home. And we get to work. Work on what? Daniel looked at her. On making sure that when we come back here, we will never have to beg again. Lisa stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. They walked out of the chamber together, leaving the laughter behind them. But Daniel remembered every face that had laughed. He remembered every word of contempt, and he made himself a promise. One day, they would remember too. 20 years passed like a slow fire burning in the dark. On Mars, in a valley hidden from the sky by walls of red rock, Admiral Kevin Brooks stood at a window and watched the future being built. The Olympus shipyard stretched before him, a maze of cranes and scaffolding and half-finished hulls. Workers moved like ants across the structures, welding, cutting, assembling. The sound of hammers and machines never stopped, not even at night. Kevin was an old soldier now. His hair had gone white, and his face was lined with the weight of command. But his eyes were still sharp, still hungry. He had been a young captain when the Galaxy Council laughed at humanity. He had sworn then that he would live to see that laughter choked in alien throats. The new drive is ready for testing, said Captain Amanda Taylor, stepping up beside him. She was tall and lean, with short dark hair and a scar on her chin from a training accident years ago. She handed him a tablet showing technical readouts. If the numbers are right, we can make the jump from Earth to the Council homeworld in 3 days. The Voron take 2 weeks. Kevin studied the numbers. And the stealth systems? Better than we hoped. We ran tests against captured Varan sensors. They saw nothing. Not a trace. As far as their machines are concerned, our ships do not exist. Kevin allowed himself a small smile. Good. What about weapons? The railguns are ready. The plasma cannons are ready. And the new missiles? Amanda paused, her eyes gleaming. Let me just say that the Varan have never seen anything like them. Nobody has. For 20 years, humanity had worked in secret. The Galaxy Council had forgotten about the small blue world on the edge of known space. They had more important things to worry about. Wars between ancient empires. Trade disputes that had been going on for millennia. The endless political games of species that had been playing them since before humans learned to make fire. They did not see what was happening on Earth and Mars and 100 colony worlds. They did not see the factories hidden underground, producing weapons and ships and technology that did not exist in any galactic database. They did not see the scientists working day and night, taking alien technology apart piece by piece and putting it back together better. Humanity had one advantage that the older species had forgotten. They were hungry. They had everything to prove and nothing to lose. And when a species like that puts all its energy into a single goal, the results can shake the stars. On Earth, in a building with no name and no windows, Director Patricia Lane ran the greatest intelligence operation the galaxy had never heard of. She sat in a room full of screens, each one showing a different part of the galaxy. Agents sent reports from 1,000 worlds. Human traders in alien ports. Human workers in alien factories. Human diplomats in alien courts. All of them watching. All of them listening. All of them sending their secrets home. The Varan fleet is still tied up with the Nexari, said one of her analysts, a young man named Chris Palmer. Their war is going badly. They have lost 40 ships in the last month. Patricia nodded. And their invasion plans? Delayed. Again. But they have not forgotten us. Commander Droth speaks of the human conquest at every opportunity. He calls it his retirement gift to himself. He will retire sooner than he thinks, Patricia said quietly. What about our friends? Chris pulled up a new display. It showed a map of the galaxy, with dozens of worlds highlighted in green. The coalition is growing. 30 species have agreed to join us when the time comes. The Telori, the Nexan, the Veldari. All of them have been ignored or abused by the elder races. All of them are ready for change. Patricia studied the map. The green dots were small, scattered among the vast territories of the ancient empires. But together, they formed a network that covered half the galaxy. Keep building those relationships, she said. When we move, we need to move with friends at our back. In Geneva, in a conference room deep beneath the city, the leaders of humanity met to discuss the future. President Ryan Carter sat at the head of the table. He was a calm man, soft-spoken, but with a core of iron that everyone in the room respected. Around him sat admirals and generals, scientists and spies, diplomats and engineers. And at the far end of the table sat Daniel Harris. Daniel was old now. His hair was completely gray, and he walked with a cane. But his mind was still sharp, and his memory was still perfect. He remembered every face that had laughed at him in the council chamber. He remembered every word. The Varan war with the Nexari will end within 2 years, Patricia reported. After that, they will turn their attention to us. We have that long to be ready. We will be ready in 1 year, Admiral Brooks said. The fleet is ahead of schedule. We will have 300 ships by then. All of them better than anything the Varan have. 300 against their 5,000? Asked one of the generals. 300 that they cannot see, cannot catch, and cannot kill, Brooks replied. Numbers are not everything. Ask the Nexari how their numbers helped them against Varan tactics. Ask the Voron how their tactics will help them against ships that appear from nowhere and vanish like ghosts. Daniel spoke for the first time. His voice was soft, but everyone listened. We are not trying to destroy the Voron. We are not trying to conquer the galaxy. We are trying to change it. When the time comes, we need to be strong enough to force the Council to listen. Strong enough that they cannot laugh at us again. Strong enough that they have no choice but to treat us as equals. And the other species? Asked President Carter. They are ready. 32 worlds have pledged to stand with us. More will join when they see that we can win. The elder races have ruled for too long. They have forgotten what it is like to be young and hungry. We will remind them. The meeting went on for hours. Plans were reviewed. Timelines were adjusted. Resources were allocated. Every person in that room knew what was at stake. If they failed, humanity would be enslaved or destroyed. If they succeeded, the galaxy would never be the same. As the meeting ended and people began to file out, Lisa Morgan stopped beside Daniel. She was older too now, with lines on her face and gray in her hair. But she was still the same woman who had stood beside him in the council chamber 20 years ago. Do you think we can really do this? She asked. Daniel looked at her. In his eyes, she saw the same cold fire that had been burning since that day of humiliation. They gave us 1,000 years, he said. We only needed 20. They thought we were primitives, incapable of growth. They thought we would crawl and beg and die. They were wrong. And when we are done, every species in this galaxy will know exactly how wrong they were. Lisa nodded slowly. Then let us finish what they started. Daniel smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of a man who had waited 2 decades for revenge and could finally see it on the horizon. Yes, he said. Let us finish it. Outside, the sun was setting over Geneva. But in shipyards and factories and laboratories across human space, the work continued. The work never stopped, because humanity knew something that the ancient empires had forgotten. The future belongs to those who are willing to fight for it, and humanity who is ready to fight. The Voron invasion fleet was a thing of terrible beauty. 50 warships hung in the darkness of space, each one a mountain of black metal and red lights. They had traveled for weeks to reach this point, the edge of human space. Commander Droth stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crusher of Worlds, and smiled with all his teeth. At last, he said. His voice was thick with satisfaction. 20 years I have waited for this moment. 20 years since those pathetic creatures stood before the council and begged for mercy. Now they will learn what mercy the Voron offer. His bridge crew worked around him, preparing for the attack. The target was a colony world called New Boston. 50,000 humans lived there. They would be the first to fall. Then Earth. Then every other human world, one by one, until the entire species was on its knees. Commander, said his sensor officer, we are approaching the colony. I am scanning for defensive forces. What do you see? The sensor officer hesitated. Nothing, Commander. Droth turned. Nothing? No ships. No weapons platforms. Nothing at all. The humans appeared to have no defenses. Laughter rumbled through the bridge. Droth joined in, his massive body shaking with amusement. They have fled. Like the cowards they are. Or perhaps they hope to surrender without a fight. He turned to his weapons officer. No matter. Begin orbital bombardment. Level their cities. Burn their farms. Show them what happens to species that think they can stand against the Voron. Yes, Commander. The weapons began to charge. Red light pulsed along the hull of every ship as the plasma cannons powered up. In moments, fire would rain down on New Boston, and the human conquest would begin. Then the first ship exploded. Droth spun around. Through the viewport, he saw the ship on his left flank simply vanish in a ball of white fire. There was no warning, no attack visible. One moment it was there, and the next it was gone. What happened? He roared, "Report!" Before anyone could answer, 2 more ships exploded. Then 3 more. Then 5 more. Alarms screamed. The bridge lights turned red. Crew members shouted at their stations, trying to understand what was happening. "Sensor officer, where's the attack coming from?" "I do not know, Commander. I see nothing." There is nothing there. But there was something there. The humans had spent 20 years preparing for this moment, and now their preparation was paying off. The UES Defiance appeared out of nothing, directly behind the Voron flagship. One moment there was empty space, and the next there was a human warship, sleek and dark and bristling with weapons. Admiral Kevin Brooks stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the enemy. "Fire," he said. The railgun roared. A chunk of metal the size of a car shot across the gap between the ships at a speed that defied belief. It punched through the Voron shields like they were not there. It tore through the armor like paper. It ripped through 3 decks before finally stopping, leaving a trail of fire and death behind it. The Crusher of Worlds shuddered. Emergency systems screamed warnings. Droth grabbed a console to keep from falling. "There! Behind us." He turned and saw the human ship. It was small compared to his flagship, almost delicate. But the hole it had just torn in his ship told him that size did not matter. "Destroy it," he shouted. "All weapons, fire!" The Voron guns turned and fired. Plasma bolts and missiles and energy beams shot toward the human ship. But the Defiance was already gone, vanishing back into nothing as quickly as it had appeared. And then it was somewhere else, behind another Voron ship, and that ship exploded too. The battle, if it could be called a battle, lasted less than an hour. The human fleet moved like ghosts. They appeared, fired, and disappeared before the Voron could even aim at them. Their weapons punched through Voron shields with ease. Their ships were faster, more nimble, more deadly than anything the Voron had ever faced. Captain Amanda Taylor commanded one of the attack squadrons. She led her ships in a dance of death around the Voron fleet, striking again and again. "Target the engines," she ordered. "I want prisoners. Let them see our faces when this is over." Her ships obeyed. Precision strikes disabled Voron ships without destroying them. Crew pods were ejected and captured. Slowly, methodically, the human fleet took the Voron invasion force apart piece by piece. On the bridge of the Crusher of Worlds, chaos reigned. Fires burned out of control. Half the crew was dead or wounded. The engines were gone. The weapons were gone. Commander Droth stood in the middle of it all, unable to believe what was happening. "This is impossible," he said. His voice was barely a whisper. "They are primitives. They are nothing. How can they be doing this?" A voice crackled over the communication system. It was calm, almost pleasant. "Commander Droth, this is Admiral Kevin Brooks of the United Earthship Defiance. Your fleet has been destroyed. Your ship is disabled. You have 2 choices. Surrender now and live, or continue fighting and die. You have 1 minute to decide." Droth stared at the communication panel. Around him, his surviving crew looked at him with fear in their eyes. They had never lost a battle. The Voron had never lost a battle. The very idea was impossible, but the evidence was all around them. The burning ships, the floating debris, the human voices on the communication channels, calm and professional, as if this was just another day at work. Droth's hand shook, not with fear, with rage, with humiliation, with the knowledge that everything he had believed about humanity was wrong. "Commander," said one of his officers, We must surrender. We cannot win. For a long moment, Droth said nothing. Then, slowly, he reached for the communication panel. This is Commander Droth. I surrender. The word tasted like poison on his tongue. An hour later, Droth stood in chains on the bridge of the U.E.'s Defiance. Human soldiers surrounded him, their weapons ready. Admiral Brooks walked toward him, hands clasped behind his back. 20 years ago, Brooks said quietly, you told our ambassador that humans would make excellent slaves. You told him you would teach us our proper place. Do you remember that? Droth said nothing. His eyes burned with hatred, but he was smart enough to stay silent. I was a young captain then, Brooks continued. I watched the recording of that meeting. I watched you laugh at us. I made myself a promise that day. I promised that when we met again, things would be different. He stepped closer until he was almost face to face with the massive Voron. Things are different now, Commander. You came here to conquer us. Instead, you have lost your fleet. You have lost your freedom. And you have given us something precious. What? Droth growled. Brooks smiled. It was not a cruel smile. It was something worse. It was the smile of a man who had already won. A message, he said. A message to the entire galaxy. The humans are not slaves. The humans are not primitives. The humans are not victims. And anyone who thinks otherwise should ask you how that worked out. He turned and walked away. Behind him, Droth was led to a cell where he would have plenty of time to think about how wrong he had been. On New Boston, the colonists came out of their shelters and looked up at the sky. They had been told to stay hidden, told that there might be danger. But now the danger was over. Human ships filled the sky and on the communication channels. They heard a message that would soon spread across the galaxy. This is Admiral Kevin Brooks of the United Earth Fleet. The Voron invasion has been stopped. Their fleet has been destroyed. Humanity stands. Humanity will always stand. To our allies, we say thank you. To our enemies, we say this. The age of bullying is over. The age of humanity has begun. In the Grand Chamber of the Galaxy Council, the news arrived like a thunderbolt. The Voron, defeated. By humans. The species they had laughed at. The species they had dismissed as PRMITIV thought there was no laughter now. There was only fear. The Galaxy Council had not called an emergency session in 3,000 years. Not since the Great War of the Keth. Not since the burning of the Nexaworlds. But now the Great Chamber was filled again, and every seat was taken. High Counselor Jethran sat in his place of honor, his 4 eyes scanning the crowd below. He looked older now, his blue skin faded to gray in places. The news of the Voron defeat had hit him hard. It had hit everyone hard. Order, he called out. His voice was not as strong as it once was. The council will come to order. Slowly, the noise died down. Thousands of alien delegates settled into their seats and turned their attention to the center of the chamber. We are here to discuss the human problem, Jethran said. 3 standard weeks ago, a Voron fleet of 50 warships entered human space. None returned. The humans destroyed 38 ships and captured 12, including the fleet commander. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Fear was in the air. You could smell it, taste it, feel it pressing down on everyone. The question before this council is simple, Jethran continued. What do we do now? A Kalosi delegate spoke up. We must form a coalition. Unite our fleets. Crush the humans before they grow stronger. If we wait, they will only become more dangerous. And who will lead this coalition? Demanded the Nexari ambassador. She was a tall being with silver skin and 3 arms. The Voron were supposed to handle this problem. They failed. Who else wants to try? Perhaps we should negotiate, suggested another delegate. The humans have proven themselves. Perhaps it is time to reconsider their application for membership. Negotiate? The voice came from High Counselor Zethran himself. With primitives who have been among the stars for less than 3 centuries, that would be an insult to every ancient race in this chamber. We must show strength, not weakness. The strength you showed the Voran? Someone called out. Nervous laughter followed, quickly silenced. Before Zethran could respond, a chime sounded. All eyes turned to the great doors at the entrance of the chamber. A delegation has arrived, announced the chamber guardian. They request permission to address the council. Zethran's 4 eyes narrowed. Who dares interrupt an emergency session? The humans, High Counselor. The humans are here. Silence. Complete and total silence. Every being in the chamber seemed to stop breathing at once. Zethran hesitated. For a moment, fear flickered across his ancient face. Then he straightened his shoulders and spoke. Let them enter. The great doors opened. Daniel Harris walked into the chamber. He was old now, leaning on a cane, his hair completely white. But his eyes were clear and bright, and he walked with the confidence of a man who knew exactly where he was going. Behind him came others. Admiral Kevin Brooks in his military uniform. Captain Amanda Taylor with her hand on her sidearm. Director Patricia Lane with her tablet full of secrets. Lisa Morgan, who had stood in this very chamber 20 years ago and watched humanity be humiliated. And behind them came more. Representatives from 32 species, all of them young, all of them forgotten, all of them ready to stand with humanity at this moment of truth. The procession walked to the center of the chamber and stopped. Daniel looked up at Zethran, and for a long moment, neither spoke. Ambassador Harris, Zethran finally said, we did not expect to see you again so soon. Your petition for membership was denied, as you may recall. You were told to return in 1,000 cycles. I remember, Daniel said. His voice carried through the chamber, calm and steady. I remember everything about that day. I remember the laughter. I remember the contempt. I remember Commander Droth promising to enslave my species. He paused, letting the words hang in the air. I also remember that you gave us 1,000 years to prove ourselves. We've done it in 20. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Zethran raised a hand for silence. You have won 1 battle against the Voran. That does not make you our equals. The Voran were careless. They underestimated you. The rest of us will not make that mistake. Daniel smiled. It was a cold smile. The smile of a man playing a game he had already won. Admiral Brooks, he said. Show them. Brooks stepped forward and activated a holographic display. It flickered to life above the center of the chamber, showing a map of the galaxy. And on that map, thousands of small dots began to appear. These are the current positions of the United Earth Fleet, Brooks announced. 300 ships in total. Each one capable of destroying a Voran warship. Each one invisible to any sensor technology known to the Council. The dots covered the map. They were everywhere. Near Council worlds. Near trade routes. Near military bases. The message was clear. We are not here to threaten you, Daniel said. We do not want war. We never wanted war. But we will not be dismissed again. We will not be laughed at. We will not be enslaved. He turned slowly, looking at the assembled delegates. For 100,000 years, this council has been ruled by the elder races. You have decided who matters and who does not. You have ignored the young species, exploited them, treated them as less than nothing. That ends today. Lisa Morgan stepped forward and began to read from her tablet. The Coalition of Rising Species, consisting of 32 civilizations, hereby demands recognition as a political body equal in standing to the elder races. We demand fair representation on this council. We demand an end to the practice of denying membership to young species. And we demand the immediate abolition of all laws that permit the exploitation or enslavement of any sentient beings. The chamber erupted in noise. Delegates shouted. Some called for guards. Some called for war. Some simply stared in disbelief. Zethran slammed his hand on his podium, demanding silence. "You cannot do this," he said. His voice shook with anger. "You are a child species. You have no right to make demands of civilizations that have existed since before your son was born." Daniel took a step forward. His eyes locked with Zethran's. "Rights," he said quietly, "are not given by the powerful to the weak. Rights are claimed by those willing to stand up for them. You had the chance to welcome us as members. You chose to mock us instead. You had the chance to treat us as equals. You chose to give us to the Voron as slaves." He raised his voice, letting it ring through the chamber. "Every choice has consequences. These are the consequences of yours. You can fight us. Your combined fleets outnumber ours 10-1. But ask the Voron what their numbers bought them. Ask them about the ships that appeared from nowhere and destroyed them before they could fire a single shot." He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was almost gentle. "Or you can accept that the universe has changed. The elder races have had their time. Now it is time to share the stars. Not because you want to, but because you have no choice." The chamber was silent. Every delegate looked at Zethran, waiting to see what he would do. The High Counselor's 4 eyes moved slowly across the chamber. He looked at the human delegates. He looked at the representatives of the coalition. He looked at the holographic map with its 1,000 points of light, each one a human warship ready to strike. And slowly, very slowly, the fight went out of him. What do you propose?" he asked. Daniel smiled. Not a cold smile this time. A real one. "A new beginning," he said. "A galaxy council where every species has a voice. Where the young are not ignored and the weak are not exploited. Where we build a future together instead of fighting over the ruins of the past." He extended his hand. 20 years ago, I came here to beg for mercy. Today, I come to offer partnership. The choice is yours." Zethran stared at the hand. Every delegate in the chamber stared at the hand. The moment stretched on forever. Then, slowly, the High Counselor of the Kalosi Dominion reached out and took it. "Very well," he said. His voice was barely a whisper. "Let us begin." And in that moment, the galaxy changed forever. 1 year had passed since the day humanity changed the galaxy. The great chamber of the Galaxy Council looked different now. The seats were the same. The lights were the same. The ancient walls were the same. But the feeling was different. Where once there had been arrogance and contempt, now there was something new. Something that felt almost like hope. Daniel Harris sat in a seat that had been carved just for him. It was on the highest tier, among the seats of the High Council. For 100,000 years, only the elder races had sat there. Now, a human sat among them, and the universe had not ended. Beside him sat the new Voron delegate. His name was Threlanak, and he was nothing like Commander Droth. He was young for a Voron, barely 1,000 years old. When the old regime fell after the defeat of their invasion fleet, he had risen to lead his people toward a new path. "It is strange," Threlanak said quietly, looking out over the chamber. "My people ruled for 100,000 years. We never imagined it could end." Daniel turned to look at him. The old human's eyes were kind, but there was steel behind them. "It did not end," he said. "It changed. There's a difference. Your people still exist. You still have your worlds, your culture, your history. You simply no longer have the right to enslave others." Threlanak considered this. "I suppose that is true. But for my people, The right to conquer was the right to exist. Without it, who are we? That is for you to decide, Daniel said. You can be whatever you choose to be. That is the point of freedom. Below them, the chamber was filling with delegates from across the galaxy. The coalition of rising species sat in their new section, 32 banners flying side by side. The elder races sat in their traditional places, though they looked smaller somehow, less certain of themselves, and everywhere. Humans walked among the aliens, talking, negotiating, building the connections that would hold the new order together. On Earth, the changes were even greater that the Olympus shipyards on Mars had been transformed. The weapons factories were still there, but now they shared space with research laboratories and exploration centers. The ships being built were not warships anymore. They were science vessels and trading ships and colony transports, designed to explore the unknown reaches of the galaxy. Admiral Kevin Brooks, now retired, stood on a balcony in New Geneva. The city sparkled below him, a beacon of human achievement. Captain Amanda Taylor stood beside him, her hair now streaked with gray. "Do you ever miss it?" she asked. "The war, I mean. The planning. The fighting." Brooks thought about the question. He remembered the Battle of New Boston. He remembered the look on Commander Droth's face when the Voran realized they had lost. He remembered the feeling of victory, sharp and sweet. "No," he said finally. "I do not miss it. War was never the goal, Amanda. It was just the price we had to pay. Now the bill is settled, and we can get on with living. And if someone threatens us again?" Brooks smiled. It was the smile of a man who had seen the worst and survived it. "Then we will deal with it. But I hope we never have to. I hope the next generation never knows what it is like to fight for survival. I hope they only know what it is like to build, to explore, to dream." Amanda nodded slowly. That would be nice. They stood together in silence, watching the sun set over the city. Behind them, the stars waited. In Geneva, in a conference room that had once been used to plan for war. Lisa Morgan addressed a new generation of diplomats. She was old now. Her hair completely white, her face lined with age. But her voice was still strong, and her mind was still sharp. The young people before her hung on every word. "The galaxy called us primitives," she told them. "They said we had nothing to offer. They said we would never be their equals. They were wrong." She paused, looking out the window at the stars that had once seemed so far away. "But we did not prove them wrong by becoming like them. We did not conquer worlds or enslave species or build empires of blood and fear. We proved them wrong by being better, by refusing to accept the limits they placed on us, by reaching for something more." She turned back to face her audience. "That is your job now. Not to fight wars, not to defeat enemies, but to build a future worth living in. The hard part is over. Now comes the real work." A young woman raised her hand. "What if the elder races try to take back control? What if they decide they do not want to share power with us?" Lisa smiled. It was the smile of someone who had seen more than most could imagine. "Then we will remind them why that is a bad idea. But I do not think it will come to that. They have learned their lesson. And more importantly, they have seen what we can do when we work together. The coalition is stronger than any single empire. As long as we stand together, no one can stand against us." In the grand chamber of the reformed Galaxy Council, a new motto had been carved above the entrance. It had been proposed by humanity and accepted by all the member species. It read, "No species too young, no voice too small. The stars belong to those who reach for them." Daniel Harris looked at those words every time he entered the chamber. They reminded him of everything he had worked for, everything he had sacrificed, everything he had achieved. He was old now, older than he had ever expected to be. The doctor said he might have another year, maybe two. But that was enough. He had seen his dream become reality. He had lived to see humanity take its place among the stars. One evening, as the session ended and the delegates filed out, Lisa Morgan came to sit beside him. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. Daniel did not answer right away. He looked around the chamber, at the alien delegates and human diplomats, at the banners of 100 species hanging side by side. "I am thinking about the day we first came here," he said. "The day they laughed at us. I was so angry, so afraid. I thought we were doomed, but we were not. No, we were not." He smiled, and for a moment, he looked like the young man he had once been. "We showed them, Lisa. We showed them all." She took his hand. "Yes, we did." They sat together as the chamber emptied. Two old humans surrounded by the evidence of everything they had built. Outside the great windows, the stars burned bright and eternal. On 100 worlds, young species looked up at those stars and dared to dream. They had seen what the humans had done. They had seen a species that had been mocked and dismissed rise to claim its place among the greatest powers in the galaxy. And they knew that if the humans could do it, then maybe they could too. The universe, once frozen in patterns that had lasted for 100,000 years, had finally begun to move again. New ideas spread from world to world. New alliances formed. New possibilities opened up that no one had imagined before. And it had been the humans. The ones who had been called primitives, the ones who had been threatened with extinction, who had made it all possible. Not bad. For a species that had only been among the stars for a few centuries. Not bad at all. Daniel Harris died peacefully 1 year later, surrounded by family and friends. His funeral was attended by representatives from every species in the coalition. And his name was carved into the Wall of Founders in the Grand Chamber of the Galaxy Council. But his true legacy was not a name on a wall. It was the galaxy he had helped to create. A galaxy where every species had a voice. Where the young were not dismissed and the weak were not exploited. Where the stars belonged to everyone who had the courage to reach for them. That was his gift to the future, and the future was bright. The end.